protected. And with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Brian Warner to provide a welcome to country on behalf of the Kabi Kabi First Nations people. Brian.
Hello everyone, my name's Brian Warner. I'm a descendant of the Carver clan within the Kabi Kabi First Nation people in the future. For the Kabi Kabi at the moment, these are troubled times. Recently, we lost a young lady who was my niece to suicide. She was going to be a doctor. And yesterday, we lost a good environmental leader who's only 17, Kerry Jones' son. So this is really hard to stand up and talk. So in saying that, I think of his father, Kerry Jones. You know, these are the people that have a major impact on me in my life. I like to think of authenticity. Kerry Jones is a great environmental leader. He does a lot to produce environmental outcomes for our people. Then there's Norman Bond. He's a great community leader. Then there's his sister called Melissa Bond. She's a great artist, great pottery maker. And then we think of Linda Davis, who's a great songman for Kerry's family. And then I think of my family, you've got Ryan Murray, who's a great songman for my family. So in that, I'm trying to relay that authenticity of our people, the strengths that lie within our community, and trying to bring together an approach that will see a way forward. I'd like to tell stories within stories. There's Brian Warner. They call me BWS, the Brian Warner stories. I like to tell stories. I like to weave stories into stories. So to get to a point. So the other day, the Transport Department asked me to go up to the corner of BUR and Old Giddy Road, and there to take a look at two registered scar trees. And it came to my attention that these were markers between us and the Jinnabara people. I should also pay my respects to the Jinnabara people for something they have to do. So most people think welcome to countries, they're like a token, but they're not actually represent a symbolicism. Because I was explaining to the Transport Department staff that if I was coming through this border, I would have lit a fire, and to inform the other clan group on the other side of the border that I was coming through, and I would like them to come down to meet me. But I'd have a message stick with me, and with that message stick, it would be nicked in certain places to allow me to have safe travel into their country. And I think of that message stick in relation to where we're standing today. We are in international borders, aren't we? You would need a passport in order to get into the country. That's what that message stick was. So, talking about international borders, I worked for Customs for 6 years. Most beautiful moment of my life. Spent 4.5 years in the waterfront environment. 6 months in Canberra, they wanted me to keep me there. I was like, no way. I'm coming back to Brisbane. But coming back to Brisbane, I ended up working at the international airport for a year. So I got to collaborate and work collaboratively with other groups like immigration, there was quarantine, and the list goes on. There was also the airlines. So having that knowledge, I would call Ross Orman, the project manager, the desk, are we using this legislation, are we doing this? And it's sort of like, all that old knowledge comes back. So to be part of this project has been an amazing experience. And through that process, our group have elected me to take on the responsibility of being our first project manager in leading tourism. So, without further ado, I'd like to thank Ross for his work with the airport and getting the Sunshine Coast Council, the Mayor, the state government, and also the federal government. So, I'd just like to see that we can build an authentic product leading into the future that enables those visitors that come to Queensland or come through the Sunshine Coast to get an authentic Aboriginal experience. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Brian, for your welcome, and on behalf of the Kabi Kabi First Nations people. Thank you very much. It is now with great pleasure that I'd like to invite the Honourable Kate Jones, Minister for State Development, Tourism and Innovation, to the lectern.
Thank you so much. I'm a bit shorter in my flats. Can I also start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather here today, and in particular, thank you, Brian, for being here today, given the significant loss that you and your family have experienced in recent days, and for all of us, when we lose young lives in their prime, it's a loss to every single one of us in the community. So we also pass on behalf of everyone here today our sincere condolences to you and to your family. Also, I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the happiest mayor in Queensland right now, the Mayor of the Sunshine Coast, Mark Jamieson, his councillor, Jason O'Prey, and Andrew Brodie, the Sunshine Coast Airport CEO, who is so proud to be the CEO of what is an ever-growing airport. And everyone that has been made this possible here today. Of course, we also have David Ryan here from Sunshine Coast Tourism, bigger and better from here, Brian, and of course everyone from the John Holland Group. Well, I think when it comes to runways, you can actually say that bigger is always better, and that's exactly what we've seen here today. The investment and the vision of the Mayor of the Sunshine Coast to invest in the Sunshine Coast Airport now absolutely puts the Sunshine Coast on a global map. From here, because of their massive extension to the runway, we will now be able to cater for international flights, and including larger aeroplanes, which means more tourists and more people coming to the region, including Dreamliners. This more than $300 million investment will transform the way that people come to visit the Sunshine Coast. It is absolutely a down payment in the future of growing this region. Tourism is such a critical part of the Sunshine Coast region. More than 1 in 6 people work in the tourism industry, and we know that right now we're all doing it extremely tough. But it's days like this when you can picture the future of tourism. It gives you confidence that as an industry together we will rebuild, and not only will we rebuild, but we will rebuild bigger and stronger together. The state government has played a role in helping facilitate the funding for the Sunshine Coast Council, but really I do want to pay tribute to the Mayor for his vision when it comes to the airport. When I became the Tourism Minister, I remember one of the first meetings I had with the Mayor was about the runway here and expanding the airport. The Sunshine Coast is one of the most beautiful places in Australia. It is one which is recognised both by Australians and internationally. It's a great destination to come and spend time with your family and friends. And now with this larger runway and expanded airport, we'll now be able to welcome many, many more people from around the world to this location. I also thought, given I was here today, that it'd be fitting to announce that the state government is announcing today $5 million to 13 airports around Queensland to go out there and secure new routes for this destination. The Sunshine Coast Airport is sharing in this funding, and we look forward to working not only with the airport and the council to deliver new flights into the Sunshine Coast. Congratulations to everyone that has been involved. This really is a proud day for the Sunshine Coast, and as I said, a real down payment in the future for jobs and economic growth for the whole region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. I would now like to invite the Sunshine Coast Mayor, Mark Jamieson, to speak.
Well, good morning everybody, and thank you very much for the welcome. I want to join with the previous speakers in recognising the traditional custodians and thank Brian for his welcome to country. I want to acknowledge all of the dignitaries that are here today and also thank the media for being here in such strong numbers. I guess first of all, the point I would make is that this has been a team effort involving a lot of people on the Sunshine Coast, and there would be many others who should be here today to celebrating this important occasion, but regrettably with the COVID-19 restrictions in place, that has created some limitations. But ladies and gentlemen, a new chapter in the story of our Sunshine Coast starts here today. This is a momentous occasion for our region. First mooted more than 40 years ago, this new international standard runway is Council's largest ever infrastructure project. and one that will deliver untold benefits for our region for the next 50 years and beyond. While this project has been in the planning since at least the early 1980s, the substantial work to convert early thinking into detailed planning and delivery has been done by our council since 2012. At that time, we identified the airport expansion as one of 5 projects of significance in our regional economic development strategy. A project that would help to fundamentally transform the region's economy and provide enduring benefits to our community. And today, that vision becomes a reality. The capability this new runway will provide our Sunshine Coast for decades to come cannot be understated. It will help build new opportunities for current and indeed future generations. Our modelling shows the expanded Sunshine Coast Airport will contribute more than $4.1 billion to our economy over the next 20 years alone, as well as generating around 2,230 jobs in that time. Importantly, the new international standard runway will provide the Sunshine Coast to acknowledge that this airport, just like the region's university hospital, the University of the Sunshine Coast and the city centre in Maroochydore, serves a much wider catchment that extends to our north and our west beyond our Sunshine Coast local government area. Connectivity is a hallmark of successful cities, communities and regions, and the Sunshine Coast Airport will now have the capacity to accommodate flights to all ports in Australia, as well as Asia and the Western Pacific. It will connect people, cultures and business across continents. The global connectivity that will now be on offer from our Sunshine Coast, both from this new runway and our international broadband cable network, which comes into service in March, means our region is well and truly on the world map, both physically and virtually. Not just for our attractiveness as a tourism destination, but as an ideal globally connected place to live, work, recreate, raise a family and do business. And that's an incredible economic and social dividend for our community, for those who live here now and those who live here in the future. I can't think of a better demonstration of realising our vision for the Sunshine Coast to be Australia's most sustainable region, healthy, smart and creative. This runway is a symbol of the confidence in the future of our region. It will afford new opportunities by opening direct access to new tourism and export markets. And ideally, those tourism markets in the future serve our Indigenous community in ways that might not have seemed possible in the past. Whilst playing an important role in helping our region and its tourism and aviation industries recover from the crippling economic impacts of COVID-19. Nothing could be more important right at this time, and I'm sure everyone here agrees. And helping our local business and industries to get back on their feet is something the Minister and I will be talking about more throughout the course of today. The runway took 26 months to construct, and at every opportunity the project has utilised local suppliers and workforce. It currently supports 200 local construction jobs, but what does it take to deliver a $334 million infrastructure project of this nature? And one that still has another 6 months to run while we build the final piece of the runway at the southeastern end. Certainly, it's unprecedented that a council would take on a project of this scale. But our council never blinked at the challenges that this might pose. We kept our eyes firmly on the opportunities and that this would provide to our residents in our region for decades to come. The reality is the successful delivery of this project is testament to the importance of teamwork, good planning, and delivering on the things you commit to do. There are many people over many years who've had a hand in helping bring this runway to fruition. To everyone who's played a part, we offer our enormous gratitude. There are 3 groups, however, whom I particularly wish to mention, for without their dedication, determination and tenacity, we'd not be here today celebrating such an historic occasion. Firstly, I want to particularly acknowledge the outstanding dedication of the Airport Expansion Project Director, Ross Orman, and his team, Jimmy, Jacinta, David, Tina, Toby, Chris, Jasmine and Steve, and of course those people who've been part of the team in the past, James, Jay, Zach and Cassie. ably led and supported by Tom Jamison, through all of the challenges, weather, water, flight paths, and everything else that's been encountered. This team has done an exceptional job, and we thank you sincerely for what has been delivered here today. Ross, you in particular as the front man for the band, have covered a fair bit of territory over the last 4 years. You've been an outstanding representative of this project and indeed of our council and community. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge John Holland, the team from John Holland led by Project Director John Holmes. This has truly been a very productive partnership, and one that I have to say marks itself as a standout, not just in scale, but also in how we've worked together to get an enormous task done. Thirdly, I want to acknowledge those people who have served as my colleagues on the Sunshine Coast Council since 2012. Those councillors, past and present, who have supported this project and had the guts and determination to make the hard decisions, keep the faith and see it through. In our COVID-19 restricted gatherings world, those current and former councillors are represented here today by the former Deputy Mayor Tim Dwyer and of course Councillor Jason O'Prey, who's represented the area since 2012. Without the determination of you and our colleagues to stay the course and focus on the opportunities for the future, we'd not be here celebrating today. Ladies and gentlemen, it would also be remiss of me not to acknowledge the federal and state governments who have each played an important role in this project. As you know, the federal government provided the initial loan, the initial concessional loan that enabled us to get the project underway. And in that I want to acknowledge the efforts of Ted O'Brien, the member for Fairfax, who has been a long and a solid supporter of the project. The federal government loan was retired last year, and the financing is now provided through the Queensland Treasury Corporation, which has also long supported the achievement of this vision for our airport and our region. The state government has also been instrumental in improving the project in the past. So I guess that was another first for our council, for the project, and indeed for the Coordinator General. Ladies and gentlemen, the results of the efforts of many people over many years are on display here today. A project of this magnitude is a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, both for our community and for our council. Now we've armed the doors and cross-checked, and we're eagerly the Sunshine Coast Airport CEO, Andrew Brodie, to come forward so I can hand over the independent certifier's certificate of completion. Andrew, I know that you and your team will make good use of this important community asset. Well done to everyone. The sky really is the limit.
Is it?
Got to get people to laugh.
You're good at that.
So good morning, everyone. I'd also like to pay my respect to the traditional owners of the land in which we gather today, Councillor Jason O'Prey. As John Holland road ahead. The dream for this runway was born decades ago, and during the time when our terminal was a tin shed, the coast was a cane field, and air travel was an absolute luxury. It's fair to say we've come a long way since those days, but even so, in most recent years. This 2,450 metre runway is something that we all should be very proud of. But to us at Sunshine Coast Airport, it's not just longer, wider, bigger and better, it's an absolute game changer. It has been developed to truly meet the needs of this growing region. It will pave the way for new beginnings, to a world of new opportunities, a world where we can bring larger bodied aircraft filled with more visitors to enjoy our region and welcome home our locals back to the Sunshine Coast, the place we all love. It will open up more direct services to more domestic destinations around Australia. And when the international borders open up again and travel restrictions lift, across to the Tasman and then into North and Southeast Asia. For local farmers and primary producers, they'll be given a fresh opportunity to export their local produce and products far and wide, and it'll keep more than 2,000 people employed over the next 20 years and secure air services for the Sunshine Coast region over the next 50 years. I'd like to congratulate the Mayor and the Sunshine Coast Council for the amazing work that they've done to bring this airfield to operations, and its contractors John Holland for delivering this critical project. I'd also like to thank the state and federal governments for their ongoing support and acknowledge everyone who's not here today who played a critical part in our airport community. COVID-19 has had an incredible impact on this airport, our industry, our region, and the entire world. It has certainly been a turbulent time, but we have weathered the storm together, and I'm very confident that blue skies are not too far away. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and it's not often you get to say you've just taken possession of a new 2,450 metre international runway. After so many years in the planning and the construction, and this is particularly on behalf of the project team, it is like giving over one of your kids. So on behalf of the team, please be kind to it, look after it, and we look forward to the first flight here on Sunday morning. I'd now like to invite Rob Evans, John Holland, Executive General Manager, Infrastructure, to say a few words. Rob.
Thank you, Tom. Like the speakers before me, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today and on which John Holland has worked extremely hard for the last 2.5 years, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Many thanks to Mayor Jamison and Sunshine Coast Council for inviting me here today to speak on behalf of John Holland. Today marks a historic milestone for the Sunshine Coast. The completion of this world-class aviation upgrade will turbocharge the region's local economy and tourism sector, offer vital international connections, and help local families more easily visit loved ones across our country. I want to thank the Sunshine Coast campus. I would also like to thank the team, professionally by John Holmes, our construction partners and our subcontractors. Runway, our team has overcome numerous hurdles, including significant weather events, particularly flooding, migratory and nesting turtles, and the most significant pandemic in a century, which has, as everybody knows, dramatically changed our daily lives. We have had an exceptionally strong and collaborative relationship with Council and the airport, and we have successfully overcome these historic hurdles together. Critically, the airport will now be available to help support the Queensland tourism sector in a COVID-safe environment. And as our state begins to reopen for business in the coming months, this newly extended airport will help deliver a critical boost to the local economy while providing capacity for future international travel. On the project itself, in a little more than a year, we have transformed this site from semi-tropical grassland to one of the most sophisticated landing sites in the country. And I was just talking to Tom earlier about how, when you compare the photos from 12 months ago to today, there is a stark comparison. 1 million man-hours of labour, 1,700 personnel inducted onto this project, 100% local labour, which is something we are exceptionally proud of as a business, $50,000 raised for local charity by John particularly, and some 52,000 tonnes of asphalt. The Sunshine Coast now boasts a facility deserving of its status as one of our nation's most iconic regional tourism and residential locations. When you consider the previous airport facilities were designed for the 1980s, when Ansett was in the air, and in excess were top of the charts. Not a time I remember. Too much. Some of you may know John Holland for our major infrastructure projects across Australia, from Parliament House in Canberra to the airport link in Brisbane. Our company was founded in regional Australia over 70 years ago by the late Sir John Holland, and our heart has always been in helping transform lives of regional communities, bridging the tyranny of distance in Australia. And here in Queensland, Australia's most decentralised state, that is more important than ever and anywhere in our nation. This project is another demonstration of our commitment and additionally ongoing commitment to Queensland, and I thank everybody for letting us share in this milestone with you today. Thank you.
indeed, Rob, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be have been on the journey with you and your team. You know, you should all be incredibly proud of the results, as you can see here today. But I would just like to just add two things to your acknowledgement. One is the commitment to the local economy, and the use of our suppliers and subcontractors and companies has been exemplary. You mentioned 1 million free, and so perspective to deliver this project on that basis, it is absolutely astonishing. So thank you very much. And thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings almost an end to the formal proceedings. I would now just ask the Minister, the Mayor and Mr Brodie just to respond to any media questions. Following this, we'd like to hold a group photograph out on the runway, but first I'll hand over to the media team and media questions.
Oh, I know, it's later. I'm really happy it's due. It's due tomorrow.
Stand here.
Just stand here. I can stand on my toes. Yeah. I just went flat, see? Thank you.
We can stand with this side. Yeah, unusual. That's what I say, you know. Jump in the air roll and thought you really do that. And then
Sticking behind you.
Sorry.
okay. Fly away.
We've spoken obviously about bringing more passengers in and out. What about export opportunities, import opportunities for the region?
Look, this new international airport, I'm pretty right in saying only the second in the last 50 odd years in Australia, has at its heart the movement of passengers but also fresh produce and indeed other export opportunities. And those opportunities will exist well beyond the boundaries of the Sunshine Coast, and for all of those local government areas that abut us to our north, west and south, this will become an export opportunity for them as well. And it would be lovely to see those areas adding value to homegrown produce, potentially with our biosphere endorsement, which will add value in those prime markets in Asia in particular. And my goal is to see as much of that money back in the farmers' pockets as possible. In answering your question, that is a really important part of what we're about. Whether it's Walker Seafoods exporting tuna from the biggest tuna port on the eastern seaboard of Australia at Mooloolaba, or strawberry growers or flower growers or beef growers, horticulture, there's a whole raft of opportunities that can be developed.
And just to confirm those figures in your speech, it was hoped to create $4.1 billion for the economy over 20 years. And
correct.
Create 2,000 jobs.
230 jobs.
230 jobs. Yep.
Yep. And you know, the multiplier effect of all that in our Sunshine Coast economy will be profound in terms of the job opportunities it creates for people. If you look at the big cities of the world, and even Brisbane's a good example, there's a massive amount of people who live and work in Brisbane who work in that airport precinct. And over time it'll be the same here with the aspirations that Andrew and his team have. This is a central focus for the economic prosperity of our region. As I said earlier, for me that we need to ensure that includes to the benefit of our Indigenous population as well, because I'm sure there will be lots of people flying in here from Asia and elsewhere who want to explore the Glasshouse Mountains or Mount Coolum and want to understand the history of our Indigenous community, want to eat the bush tucker, buy the bush art and enjoy the Indigenous music. So there's a raft of opportunities that come with this, and our job now that this is done and the runway's here is to make sure we maximise those opportunities.
You referenced in your speech the the flooding rains that hit this site, the questions over the flood path. There was also obviously the matter of trying to remove that water and the questions around PFAS, which had Aaron Brockovich coming in, weighing in as well. The Sunshine Coast is an area that likes to keep the area as it is. Progress can be quite difficult here. Do you think it's harder to do a project like this here compared to other places in Australia?
Well, I think any big project is challenging. I mean, this airport has been here for over 50 years, and I pay tribute to those with the initial foresight to see that this area would need an airport, and particularly to those who allowed sufficient room for this runway to be constructed. And it's been talked about for a long time, and to the credit of the council from 2012 and beyond, we've worked really hard and been very committed, as you point out, in the face of lots of opposition for all sorts of reasons. But in the long run, I remain very confident that the citizens of the Sunshine Coast will value this asset. And remember, it is an asset that belongs to the citizens of this region, and it will pay them dividends well into the future, not only in the ability to access other parts of the world, but also in the carriage of freight, as I said earlier, and the enduring benefits of the industry that will develop around it. So it is, I think, you cannot underestimate the importance of those decisions made by individual councillors and then council as a group to get behind these sort of projects, because there is a lot of opposition, a lot of reasons to say it's too hard, let's not do it. But that would be letting the community down, because in my view, the great majority of the Sunshine Coast community want to see this airport operational and maximise its opportunities in an international sense.
Can I ask how you're feeling about, obviously as the pandemic began to unfold, it became very clear that it was going to be difficult to land an enormous plane here and have perhaps the celebration that an international airport like this should garner. There's no streamers, there's no ribbons, there's no crowds. How are you feeling today to be having a very lo-fi sort of event?
Well, I'm disappointed that we can't have some other people here who've played significant roles because of the limitation on numbers around COVID-19. But I feel proud. I feel proud for all those who are here, and I feel proud for our region that we've achieved something that very, very few places in Australia achieved, to have an international airport. And this would be the biggest, as I said, the biggest project our council has ever done, and I'm not aware of any council anywhere in Australia who's ever done a project of this nature. So I'm very, very proud of that. I didn't quite answer all of your question before. You asked about the challenge with PFAS and the like in the water. And I just want to make the point that council has always had the environmental outcomes of this region at the forefront. We didn't put the PFAS here to start with.